trust me. I'm like a smart person.
Yeah, hang on, Donnie. I'll get to you in a minute.
Oh, Mr. President, you're so fantastic and you're so wonderful and everything about you is huge and marvelous and exquisite.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Arctic conditions are sweeping across Britain. Temperatures tonight could plummet to minus 15. What's that? Minus 15 centigrade. And you double it and you add 32 to get Fahrenheit, but you can't double a minus number, so that is impossible to work out. I think you'll find that that is mathematically correct. Met Office forecasters say Arctic air from the north combined with clear and calm conditions overnight form the perfect ingredients for a bitterly cold night ahead. But they are Met Office scientists in possession of facts, so nobody is remotely interested in what they have to say.
Affirmative.
Forecaster Alex told Mail Online it's going to be very cold indeed. We know that. Parts of northern England, Wales, and it's blooming freezing outside, by the way. Very, very quiet outside. Very quiet. I recommend you don't go outside. I think most people have decided to do just that, not go outside. You could park an ocean-going liner in the heart of the West End. Never mind about a small city car. Parts of northern England and Wales and Scotland are expected to endure bitingly cold. Is it bitingly?
Yes.
Bitingly cold temperatures, especially where there is still lying snow. Lying snow. Liar! That kind of snow. It will not be raining in Glasgow all week. I checked. Can you believe that?
No.
Not one day. For the next 7 days is it going to be raining in Glasgow. Britons are going to wake up to and other, foreigners, because they come over here and they wake up just as, just as much as we do. They'll be waking up to a cold morning tomorrow, but the day ahead is looking to be fine. Ah, fine, as in... There's going to be a lot of sunshine about. You remember the big yellow ball in the sky?
No.
Yeah, it's a big yellow ball in the sky. It's very difficult to look directly at. Don't look directly at the ball, Mr. President. There's going to be a lot of sunshine about, and for most it's going to be a sunny but cold winter's day. That's right, it's winter. But you know what? We only have to go through, another 6-7 months of this before the weather turns nice.
Fabulous.
Approximately. Temperatures will perhaps feel a little bit colder than today. Colder than today? No. A high of around 7 degrees in the south. Oh, I can do that. 7 degrees. You double it and add 32. So 2 times 7 is 16. And 16 and 32 is... 16 and 32 is like about 55? 55 degrees. That's not cold at all. These people don't know what they're talking about. Idiots. The Met Office also issued a weather warning for ice affecting north east England and parts of Scotland from 5 p.m. tonight, as in now, through to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. AM is mostly in the morning, I think you'll find. Not always, but mostly. And this highlights that there is a chance of injuries that could occur from slips and falls on icy surfaces. It's like that woman on the weather in the morning. Oh, it's going to be a bit brisk out. Take your wee coat and your hat and your scarf. Going to be very, very cold out.
Warning, warning.
That's what they said. Don't fall. Don't get ill. Take care and drive faster, really close to the car in front, and flash your lights and go berserk if they're daft enough to do 20 in a 20 zone. That is the official advice of the RAC. The government is actually telling you not to get ill. Well, the NHS is. Front page of the the front page of the Daily Mail. The front page of the Daily Mail could always be summarised as that's pretty much, that'll be the front page tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. It's pretty much always their aim in life is to get you furious before you've actually had breakfast. To slam the paper down on the table and think, oh, for goodness sake! Poor! Now the NHS tells us don't get ill. Health officials yesterday came up with advice to help us cope with the winter NHS crisis, telling the public not to get ill. If only we'd thought of that before. I feel so stupid. They urged people to stay well this weekend. Do you hear that? This says Trump has bemoaned the lax libel laws in the US, but they're much harsher in the UK, where the book is available. So he's hoping he will launch an action ASAP, but don't hold your breath. Why would I hold my breath? Why would you hope that? Oh, these dinglings from... well, I presume that you're from here.
Oh, Mr. President, you're so fabulous, and you're wonderful, and you're huge, and your hands are so large, and you're wonderful and marvelous. Thank you very much.
Why would you hope that he would launch a libel action here to take the book off the shelf? What kind of a person would hope that? We're surrounded by morons, ladies and gentlemen. Another excellent reason not to go out. I've given up on people. I think I'm going to go up a Welsh hillside and live in a yurt with a dog. By the way, how's your week been, Donny?
Oh, shut up!
You would think that a really smart genius would ignore that book and hope that it goes away. But that's not how Donny does it. Donny comes out swinging. And I don't just mean his tie. Oh, I hit that and nothing happened.
Like to punch him in the face.
There you go. It must make him furious that he can't just have journalists killed, like his mate Vlad. So he flails around like a whiny baby. You know what? I'm sorry. I take that back. That's not fair. Donald Trump is not a whiner.
I am the most fabulous whiner. And I'm a whiner, and I keep whining and whining.
Once again, I stand corrected. So he went to his safe space. He went back to his greasy bed sheets with a Big Mac and fries and started yelling at the television and dancing his tiny fat fingers over his phone in between yummy bites. This is, you know, when I read this, excuse me, when I read this, I first thought, in fact, I tweeted back at him, I can never go to America again. He'll probably have me arrested with great vengeance the moment I show up. My name's on a list somewhere.
Oh, no.
Yep. Can never go there again. I'm not sure I'd want to go there again. While he is the President of the United States of America, I'm not sure I'd actually want to go there. I'll wait till he leaves. He is going to leave, isn't he? Or he's going to enact some kind of law that the Vladimir Putin directive, that he can just rule forever. And those Republicans lining up behind him at the conference, which was to tell us that he was a really smart and stable genius, and they're just Mike Pence. God, what is wrong? It's like Ben Carson. You know Ben Carson, the token black guy that Donald Trump put on his cabinet and made him in charge of public housing. He used to be a brain surgeon. It looks like Mike Carson, the brain surgeon, has been working on Mike Pence with a teaspoon. And a hand blender. He looks at him like a puppy dog is looking at his master, Mike Pence. Like nothing's going on in there at all.
Oh, Mr. President, you're so wonderful and fabulous.
Thank you very much. It's just I wasn't going to talk about Donald Trump this evening, but you big puffy orange buffoon, you make it so difficult to ignore you.
He's a great guy. He's a good guy. He's a good person.
Yeah, but I suspect that Donald Trump is not a very nice person.
Donald Trump is a very nice person.
Well, once again, I stand corrected. I've said this before. Just imagine anything that he says coming out the mouth of, never mind about any other world leader, just any other person. He'd be wearing the jacket that ties up round the back before you could say... So he comes out with this tweet today. It's a 3-part tweet. A tripart tweet. And when I first saw it, I thought, okay, somebody, this can't be true. Somebody has taken over Donald Trump's account. Because, you know, it was taken off the internet for about 11 minutes. 11 beautiful minutes. Oh, they were the most fabulous minutes of last year. Everyone could relax just for 11 sweet minutes. And then some dope put him back on again. But when I read it, I thought... I tweeted right back that pure comedy gold. It's just incredible what he's writing. In order to prove that he was a really smart, stable genius, he went to Twitter, of course, which is the home of really smart, stable geniuses, and he put any doubts to rest. I'll come to that in just a minute. I am aware that I was going to talk about his access to the nuclear button. My button is huge. And I didn't do that, because I only have a 3-hour show, and yesterday I didn't get around to doing it. I'm going to have to take a break and a cough, and I'll come back with some more of this, because this, it's just... no Hollywood blockbuster is as riveting... Star Wars is not as riveting as what has been coming out of the White House. Patrick says, I think your mate Donnie is finally cracking up. If his latest tweeting rants are anything to go by, he is said to be tweeting in his pyjamas first thing now. Well, that might explain a lot, actually. In his pyjamas, the ones with the fly that becomes a gape. I think he's tweeting with little Donny. Here's a call in Worthing. Hello, Sean.
Oh, Nick. Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon, Chair. Only a quick
okay.
one.
Close.
First time calling all that lovely stuff.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Much pleasure. All right.
What?
Love all your stuff. Let me sorry, mate. Look, do you know what? By the way, I was on hold for so long. I've seen 2 fruit shortcake biscuits, and I try to swallow them quickly.
Dude, you've been on hold for less than 10 minutes. That's a blink of an eye on this show.
Well, that's fair enough. That's all marvellous behaviour, and that's not nice. Just a quick one, mate.
Yes.
And it's awfully ridiculous. I'm 45 in a couple of weeks.
45 in a couple of weeks.
Yes, indeed.
You made it.
Oh, my gosh, all good behaviour. Now, just a quick one. This is how you capture numbers and stuff. I'll get to the point. Celsius to Fahrenheit. We were saying, this is I need to get a life, man, because this has been. I know the answer to this. You're saying double it and add 32.
Yeah.
What you actually have to do, Mr. Abbott, right, is you times it by, to get from Celsius to Fahrenheit, you times it by 1.8.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's easy, yeah. 1.8. Everybody can do that in their head.
Well, no, but my advice to you, my good friend, is this, right? And I agree with you. 1.8 and add 32, it gets a bit undesirable. So the quick way of doing it is double it and add 30. So stop adding the 32, just add 30. There you go. Job's a good one. It's quite funny, really.
Not really, no. Actually, not really, no. Not funny or hilarious or amusing or interesting. Double it and add 32, I think, is exactly what you're supposed to do. So if it's 7 degrees, double 7 is 16, and 16 and 32 is like about 55.
Correct.
Easy. I'm going to have to cough again. Steve says, if one refers to oneself in the third person, does it infer multi-personality disorder? Just wondering, like a smart person, Nick. Yeah. Okay. Chichester, Joanna.
Nick, hello, Nick, talk to me. Is this your 17th night now?
It's my 16th night in a row. 16 shows in a row.
So you're upside down with your legs in the air, about to pass out and say bye-bye, Will.
I'm going to... tonight when I get home, I'm going to put the key in the front door, but I won't have the energy to actually turn the key, and I'll just sleep in a sort of a leaning position with my face pressed against the front door outside tonight.
And will you please put Donnie in the dustbin? For me, just tonight.
Put Donnie in the dustbin?
Yeah, that would be good.
What do you mean, put Donnie in the dustbin? Put Donnie in the corner and put a big D hat on him.
You know who Donnie is. You've been talking about Donnie.
Let him think about what he's done.
Yeah, I don't care what Donnie's done. Listen, I don't expect you to remember me, but of course you don't. But in about 2011, there was some sort of a census going on, and I texted you, to tell you that we weren't in the centres because we were living in a motorhome and no one knew where we were because we had no bricks and mortar. We were just travelling around in our motorhome.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't remember you, no.
No, of course not. But you read our text out twice because you were so flabbergasted that we could escape the whole thing, you know, by living in our motorhome.
Right.
Well,
I don't-
I'm just
doesn't
here to
sound like
tell
me,
you
but-
that. Hey, well,
Go
you
ahead.
did. You said all crazy people.
Yeah.
But I'm just here to tell you that 10 years on, we're still living in a motorhome. You said earlier that you'd like to live in a ute with a dog.
Mm.
Well, I'm living in a motorhome with my dog just outside Chichester.
Yeah.
And we haven't lived in what you would call a house for 10 years.
What kind of dog have you got? It's not one of those tiny little annoying yappy dogs, is it? Or is it a proper one?
No, it's a dog that we picked up from. She was a little puppy in the middle of a motorway when we were motoring down to Portugal 2 years ago. We nearly killed her, and she was just sort of in front of us. We picked her up. Yeah. So she's actually a hound. She goes after all these English hares and English whatever wildlife there
Yeah.
is, and
Squirrel.
we have to keep apologising to farmers, you know, because she keeps chasing.
Well,
us.
keep her on a lead, Joanna. What are you, out of your mind? Keep her on a lead when you go on a farm.
I can't keep her on a lead. I've got a bad back. But I mean, she provides
Can't keep her
lunch
on a
and
lead.
dinner and
You've got a
everything.
bad back. That makes.
Yeah,
Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
I'm
but
not sure.
when you've got a bad back and a dog, you let her off the lead and she catches your lunch for you. It's quite simple.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Joanna. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's the 16th the show in a row. Hang on. And I'll be lucky if I actually make it to the end of it. You know, I thought I was going to get sick right at the beginning of it, and I thought, oh no, because everybody in this building has got sick, and I thought I'm going to get sick too.
Oh no!
That's correct, isn't it, my glamorous assistant? Pretty much everybody in this building is sick and coughing and sneezing and all of the rest of that. Horrible. Ugh. Isn't
Did
that
I
right?
give it to you yesterday when I coughed?
No, you didn't. Well, I don't know. That sort of thing takes a little while to gestate, doesn't it? Ugh, but it's like we're up to our eyeballs in sputum in this building. Horrible. And I definitely thought I was going to get sick right at the beginning of the run. But 16 shows in a row. You don't have to thank me for it. No, wait. I've changed my mind. You can thank me. Talk about heroic. And so this evening when I was coming in, I thought I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to go to a supermarket, and as I was passing one by, I thought I'm going to go in there and I'm going to buy myself a bottle of wine. I haven't had any alcohol since before Christmas. Everybody else has been getting absolutely steaming for the last couple of weeks, and I haven't had a drop. Nothing. Not since before Christmas have I had any alcohol of any kind whatsoever. That is a bit of a lie. I had one sip, literally one sip, of some booze that was going around on New Year's Eve. And it was just one sip, because I happened to be on the air at the time. But I didn't like it, so I left the rest of it. So really, I've had nothing. And so I thought, tomorrow I will treat myself. And so I went into this supermarket, and I marched up to the counter, and I said, I'll have the cheapest bottle of champagne you've got, please. And she pulled it down off the shelf, and it seemed like excellent value. Well, I don't know, excellent value for money, $16.99. It's a cheap bottle of champagne, right enough, but it seems a lot of money to spend on a bottle of booze. But I thought, 16 shows in a row, I deserve some sort of treat. And so I waved my card over the machine that goes boop. You know, the machine that goes. No, it doesn't do that. It goes like that. Actually, that would be great. If those machines did that, wouldn't that be excellent? You'd go, walk into a shop just to buy something, anything. And she handed it me over, and I walked out, and I registered that something was wrong. But the look on her face was a bit odd. But you know, when you're in a shop and there's a queue behind you, and you are waving your card around over the machine that goes. You're not really in your right frame of mind. You're not thinking straight. And I got back in the car, and I put the bottle on the floor next to me, And I thought, you know what, that bottle's hot. And it wasn't just warm, it wasn't room temperature, it was actually difficult to touch hot. And I thought, well, that can't be good for champagne. And the thing was, it was on the top shelf right next to where the lights that illuminate the display were. And it was actually baking, almost difficult to touch, hot. But at that point I thought, oh God, well, I'll have to do a UE and then go back and find a parking space and then queue up at the Co-op, oops, and then ask for a different bottle. And I thought, oh, to hell with it. So tomorrow I'll be enjoying a hot bottle of champagne because, you know, I'm worth it. But you know me, I never complain.
Stop whining.
Carrie says it's positively Arctic outside, so we should do what the Danes do and have hygge. Is that how you pronounce that?
I think it's something like that.
Yeah. We should have a hug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I don't want one. You never know where people have been. Ugh.
Disgusting.
Do what the Danes do and have a hug, which is all about coziness. Think hot cocoa and candles. No, I don't want a hug. Hygge. Hygge. It sounds like the noise that you make after you've had too much hot champagne. Jim says, what's a yurt? Oh, yeart. Y-E-apostrophe-A-R-T. No, Y-U-R-T. A yurt. It's like a hippie's tent.
Groovy.
They put them up at Glastonbury and charge dopes $3,000 to stay in them. Do you believe that? A yurt, baby.
Yowza.
This says, I'm a brilliant brain surgeon, Nick, and an A380 pilot. The best my airline employs, and I'm also an astrophysicist, so tremendous even E.T. is scared of me. Actually, I'm none of the above, but if I told myself enough times that I was, I might end up believing it. Unfortunately, in any normal world, I would also be fast-tracked for urgent psychiatric therapy. So how come some people get to dodge the men in the white coats? Well, the Orange Nightmare in the White House gets to dodge them, because if they showed up at his door, Special Branch would resist their attentions with great vengeance. James says, hygge is a stupid Danish concept. Stupid Danish people. That seems unfair. Why pick on the Danish? They're so nice and lovely and huggy. Hygge is a stupid Danish concept. A company I work for thought they would launch a product to encapsulate hygge. I objected, but oh well, what a load of rubbish. Well, that's not very hygge, is it? I thought hygge was all about being nice to people and not drawing your curtains, allowing people to see in your front room, because that's what they do in Scandi countries, don't they? In this country, we immediately, at the moment that the lights go down outside and the lights go on inside, we draw our curtains because we don't want anybody to see what disgusting, sticky things we get up to in the privacy, in the squalor of our own front rooms. Over there, they don't have curtains, they throw it all out so people can peer inside. And look at your beautiful Scandinavian lifestyle. They're so open and tall and blonde. Stupid Danish concept. That's not hygge. Chris says, are you going to do questions sent to Nigel Farage for his meeting, as promised at the end of your show last night? I came to bed early to have a laugh. Yes, Chris. Yes, I will. You know, the Guardian newspaper actually printed something that was funny. Can you believe that?
No.
They did. They, Nigel Farage on LBC. He asked the listeners of this great radio station to present him with questions that he could go and present to Michel Barnier. You remember Michel Barnier, don't you?
No!
Yes, that's him. And on Monday he's going to go and quiz him. And so he invited people from the internet to send suggestions to him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly, with the predictable results. And so the Guardian helpfully printed some of the ones that Nigel Farage will not be taking with him, and they're priceless. So yeah, I'll come to that in a while. And Dave says, we're British, whatever next, we don't do hugs. Yeah, that's right. You can keep your filthy continental perversions to yourself. Here's a call in Uxfield. Jean-Luc.
Hello there, Nick.
Hello there, Jean-Luc.
Yeah, hi. I've been listening to you on my way home from work.
Yes.
And I think I've found the problem that you have with your working out of Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Oh, yes.
Every time you've been saying it, you keep saying 7 is 16.
Yes.
But 7 is 14.
I don't think so.
7?
Mm-hmm.
2 sevens
Yes.
is 14.
16. I don't know where you went to school, Jean-Luc, but you're just embarrassing yourself. You want to check your facts before you call in to correct somebody. Awful. You believe that? I think that's an indication of where our schooling has gone wrong in this country. How embarrassing. Check your facts before you call in to correct somebody, Jean-Luc. It's like fishing in a garden pond. How's the week been, Donny?
Oh, shut up!
Yeah, so this is the tweets that Donald Trump put out today. And when I saw it, I thought, there's no way that anybody in possession of their marbles would put this out. 1. 2, an actual serious person in a proper job wrote these texts. I don't think so. 3, the leader of the free world actually wrote this. And it was a 3-part tweet, a tripart tweet. And he said, and by the way, now that Twitter allows us to write to so much more, double what we used to before, it's double, it's like double the nuts. They've doubled up on the crazy. Excuse me. Now that, this is what he wrote. Now that Russian collusion, after 1 year of intense study, has proven to be a total hoax on the American public, the Democrats and their lapdogs, the fake news mainstream media, are taking out the old Ronald Reagan playbook and screaming mental stability and intelligence. Okay, that was the first part. No, I mean, apart from anything else, is it me, or is that the whole fake news catchphrase getting a bit old? Fake news, anything that's not,
oh, Mr. President, you're so fabulous and wonderful and marvelous and handsome, and your hands are so big, and look at the size of your button, it's huge.
Thank you. Anything that's not that is fake news. That's getting really old. Second, the Russia thing has not proven to be a hoax. That's completely untrue.
Liar!
And the third part is, of course, the Ronald Reagan bit. That's the alarming part, that he would actually bring up the name Ronald Reagan in all of this. I mean, does he... Anyway, the second part is, actually, throughout my life, says Donald Trump, my two... So this is when I just thought, there's no way. He's just kidding with us now. He's just joshing. But I don't think he is. You know, much of the tweets that he does put out, I think, well, they're just distraction techniques. He just throws out something like, you know, transgendered people can't use the bathroom of their choice anymore, or, you know, it's just stuff like that. And I think, well, that's just distraction techniques, because the press will just go on that for a day, and they'll sick it like a dog on a, whatever that woman in the motorhome said that her dog does, sheep or something like that. Keep your dog on a lead in the countryside, for crying out loud. And if you've got a bad back, get a smaller dog. So he just chucks these things out of moving cars so that the press will, sick on them for a while. But this, he says, actually throughout my life, my two greatest assets have been... My two greatest assets. Okay, now if you didn't read this thing before, what would you think that his two greatest... Well, we know what he thinks one of his greatest assets is.
Disgusting.
Exactly. It's huge. His presidential button. But that's not what he's talking about in this particular instance. He says, my two greatest assets have been mental stability and being like... and being like really smart.
So I went to the Wharton School of Finance, which is considered the best business school, okay? Got to be very smart to get into that school. Very smart.
And on and on and on.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yeah. But saying it's one thing. I'm like a smart person, because that's just the way he talks. But he actually wrote that down. I'm like... where is it? My two greatest assets have been mental stability and being, like, really smart. And it's just the punctuation and the insert of that word like that I thought, well, actually, this is a joke. Somebody's got hold of his phone and they're just spoofing on him now. Because who would write that? My two greatest assets have been mental stability and being, like, really smart. which disclude, and anybody that writes that is discluded from the category really smart. He said, crooked Hillary Clinton. Oh God, is he still on about Hillary Clinton? Let it go, Donny. You lost the popular vote. Just accept it. He said, crooked Hillary Clinton also played these cards very hard, as in mental stability and being like very smart. Played these cards very hard and, as everyone knows, went down in flames. I went from very successful businessman to top TV star to President of the United States on my first try. I think that would qualify as not smart, but genius. And a very stable genius at that. He does need one of those jackets that does up round the back. Who would say that? So I just thought, I thought, well, I tweeted back at him. I wonder if he actually reads his tweets. He must get millions of them. I said, pure comedy gold. Because it is. It's like somebody has got a spoof account of the President of the United States and they're just putting comedy stuff out. I think that would qualify as not smart, but genius. And a very stable genius at that. Oh my God, we're all in deep trouble. It's a good job that big, huge button on his desk is only attached to the Coke machine. He doesn't know that, of course. And I will talk about his big, huge nuclear button in just a minute. God, here's calling Epsom. Hey, Martin.
Hi, Nick.
Martin.
Usually I'd say you're the funniest person on this radio station by far. However, tonight you've been outdone by your newsreader, because I had to burst out laughing when the very first line out of her mouth was, and kudos for not laughing, by the way, was Donald Trump has described himself as a genius.
Yes, I know. Well done, Zora.
I mean, okay, so...
Don't you try this at home, by the way. Zora Suleiman is a trained professional. Only she and somebody like her can do that without busting a gasket.
Clearly. So I'm halfway through the book now.
Oh, really? Where did you get it, by the way? I mean, nobody can find that book. It's out everywhere. I mean, it's out of stock everywhere.
Honestly, I got the audiobook version.
Really?
Because I struggle with reading a little bit, which is actually part of what I wanted to get to.
Oh, okay. Who's reading the book?
I'm sort of slightly dyslexic, you see, so the audiobook thing really makes
But
sense.
who's reading the book, though? Is it Donald Trump?
No, I think it's everyone but him, which is the point I wanted to get to, because apparently his staff think he's illiterate.
Yeah.
Like, literally, they think he's semi-literate.
Well, their briefings apparently. I mean, I see. I haven't read the book. I haven't even seen it. Only excerpts that have cropped up in the papers. But he has a daily briefing, and apparently, normally it's on a couple of pages of closely typed A4, which Obak Arama would get. You have to really just to pause for a second and remember that Obak Arama used to do the same job that the Orange Nightmare is currently doing now. I mean, holy smoke, what the hell has happened in the world? If you haven't seen the film Idiocracy, then you must see it immediately before we all die.
I mean, it's worth considering that Donald Trump makes George W. Bush look intelligent.
Absolutely, it's not worth considering. It's an absolute statement of fact. George W. Bush looks positively presidential in comparison with you-know-who.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, but what I was saying was that they have a daily briefing, which is normally two, and Donald Trump refuses daily briefing because he says he's like a smart person. He said, "Trust me."
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
So he doesn't need his daily briefing, but he does need, a guide every now and again. And so what they do is they give him pictures. In a big sheet of paper with pictures on it, and they can only get him to pay attention if the biggest pictures on the page are of him.
I mean, what I read about today was it's not actually a guy; it's actually a woman who is a White House staffer, and it's his most trusted aide in the White House. And it's not Steve Bannon, it wasn't Kellyanne Conway or any of these big, massive names. It was a woman, I've forgotten her name now, but her literal job description was to read for him and to break the news to him in the most positive way possible. That was literally her job description. And if she didn't do that job well, he would just throw a fit.
Yeah.
And just sit in bed with his cheeseburger or whatever it is. It's bizarre.
With a big sulky look on his purse, yeah.
And because of that, they actually think he might be severely dyslexic because he can't actually read that well, except for he can read good headlines about himself.
Yeah.
Which happened once, I think, like 3 months into his presidency. He actually gave a good speech because Jared and Ivanka pretty much orchestrated the whole thing. And he had a couple of days of good press coverage before Flynn was done for the Russians. But yeah, he enjoyed about 2 days of good press coverage in the history of his administration.
Well, unless you watch Fox News, in which case it's just it's like I said yesterday, it's like the Fox News thing in the morning. We can't watch that now because they took it off here, which is kind of disappointing, because if you wanted a real good laugh and just an indication as to what the yahoos from the Dingaling states are actually watching and to make them think that Trump's doing a great job, they actually they treat him like a turkey at Christmas. They baste him with butter and then they lick it off and in the morning, and he just sits there watching them do it.
Isn't that just an image? But
I'm sorry about that.
It seems to me that, we all think he's delusional, and he probably is, but if you read the book, it shows that everyone at that top level. I always thought Jared Kushner was actually quite a level-headed guy from the news that I'd read, because it wasn't particularly, bad about him, but they're all delusional. As in, they're all working on different realities. It uses the word reality, the author uses the word reality for different characters in this book repeatedly. So Steve Bannon was trying to turn Trump into some sort of neo-Ronald Reagan. Jared Kushner's trying to turn him into some sort of neo-Clinton. And then Kellyanne Conway just completely lost the plot. She was only on board to try and become sort of the best right-wing commentator after having lost the election.
Yeah,
that was her plan. But she wanted to, Trump wanted his news network, and Kellyanne Conway was going to be the most respected.
It actually makes much more sense if you take on board that Donald Trump didn't actually want to win. This was just the entire thing was an exercise in increasing the recognition of his brand. He just wanted to sell phony university degrees and stakes to people in Michigan. He had no interest in being the president. This is all came as it was a disaster, really. His plans out the window. He wanted like you said, he wanted his own news television station, and he was going to run it with Breitbart, and that's why Steve Bannon was on board, and it was going to be even more to the right than Fox News was. Because, there's a lot of angry old white men in America, and they spend a lot of money on Sanatogen and hemorrhoid cream. The advertising breaks would be full of it.
I sense a theme, though, between Trump and Brexit here, that both didn't want to win, apart from, the real nutters like Bannon and Farage. Both, neither team wanted to win. It's like the biggest political disasters on both sides of the Atlantic.
Well, the amount of people that have called into me that said, I voted out, but I didn't really mean it, and I was making a protest, against the status quo. But what's bizarre about Brexit is that the people that represent the group against the status quo are even richer and more establishment than the status quo.
Yeah, it even says in the book that when Bannon was forced out, he suddenly was hit by the realization that Trump, who he held up as this anti-establishment figure, was of course the most establishment figure ever.
Well, so's Bannon. Bannon used to be a trader, didn't he? He's a millionaire. That's what's comical about all of these people, and the Brexit people as well. They say, we're really interested in the little people and the common man, and they're not remotely interested in them. And that they're anti-establishment. They couldn't be more establishment. Millionaires and billionaires. That's what they are.
Yeah, after those tax reforms, wasn't it said that Trump had this big dinner in a 12-star hotel or whatever it was, and basically a room full of billionaires, and just shouted, "You all just got a lot richer."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that was his response to his big beautiful tax cut, was telling a room full of billionaires that they all just got a lot richer. Yeah.
Yeah, happy days.
All right, thanks a lot, Martin. You're not reading it, but keep listening to it, all right, and give us regular updates. I guess by this time next week, when I'm on Friday, you'll be all the way through it, and you'll be able to tell us what happens in the end. Oh, boy, it's just I've said this every now and again. I've said this in the past. What we're living through right now is probably the most extraordinary period outside wartime that the world has ever seen. Outside of the First and Second World War, nobody has ever seen anything like it. And it's all down to one man. Thanks, Donnie.
You are going to love President Trump.
Well, love is not quite how I put it, but be fascinated by, absolutely. And we'd hate to see you go.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for all the laughs. Just don't kill us all. That's unfair. There's no suggestion that Donald Trump will bring us to war.
I'll bring us into war.
Well, okay. Once again, I stand corrected. In the future, people are going to look back at this period in history, and ain't it great? We're getting it on a daily basis. In the future, people are going to have to sit down and read books about it.
Boring.
Yeah, history books. Ugh. We're getting it as news. In the future, people are going to have to look back, assuming that there is a future, and the planet is not rendered into a steaming cinder. Can cinder steam?
No.
No, right. A smoking cinder. Yeah, that makes more sense. Assuming that there is a future for planet Earth, people in the future are going to look back and think, wow, what the hell was going on? In fact, that's precisely what they're going to say.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah. I'm writing a book about everything that happened. I've written it actually about everything that happened last year, and I don't know what to call it. Maybe what the hell is going on? Maybe I've already written a book called What the Hell is Going On. I've written about 5 or 6 now, and I forgot what I've called them. Maybe What the Hell is Going On would be a good one. I did think My Year in Trumpton, or A Year of Living Trumpily. Those are the 3 that I got so far. John says, Nick, I told my psychiatrist that I was hearing voices. He said, I don't have a psychiatrist. Another John says, Nick, I object to this hygge business. Those perfect Danes think they have the monopoly on coziness. Well, they don't. John's very angry about it. Belfast. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Nick.
Laura.
How are you?
I'm great, mate.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I was just thinking, you need to be very careful now.
Uh-oh.
Because you just might be a target, you know, with these tweets if you're you know, retweeting or if you're tweeting him back, you know? Because we really don't know the size of that button. It could be really big.
Well, yeah, he well, presumably being the, it's not just him, being the President of the United States of America, they have huge centres of listening where they just scan the airwaves all over the world, searching out anybody that might have negative opinions about the giant orange galump in the White House. And, yeah, they would act very aggressively if anybody expressed too strong an opinion.
You are a terrible man, you really are.
Not really.
Listen, I phoned to make just two quick points, right? And the first one is, he is due his medical in a few weeks.
Right.
The Orange Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking of that title for your book, Nellie the Elephant Packed Your Trump.
No. No, I don't like that one.
Anyway, he has to go for his medical. So they have to, obviously, they're going to be evaluating him on a psychological basis.
I don't know, do they?
Yes,
Okay.
they do. Yes, they do.
Well, I wonder how they do that.
Every president has to go through this.
Okay.
Okay. So,
well, it can't be very stringent because apparently Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's while he was the president.
Is that right?
No, according to his son, yeah.
Maybe it was very early Alzheimer's when you didn't know. But sure, I mean...
Kind of hard to tell, though, because Ronald Reagan never really had it together. Ronald Reagan had based his foreign policy on what his wife's astrologer said.
Yeah, what else was going to say? What difference would it make? I mean, how would they have told, really, you know?
Which makes it doubly curious, if not hilarious, that Donald Trump would actually... see, this is another reason why I thought that tweet today, that tripart tweet of Donald Trump was a spoof, because he brought up Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's. His own son said that he had Alzheimer's, and he was formally diagnosed with the disease in 1994. So why would Donald Trump, if it in fact was him that made that tweet, and it increasingly does seem like a spoof, but then everything he says seems like a spoof. Why would he bring up Ronald Reagan as an indication, as an example of mental stability?
Well, you see, there's something going on underneath there. Well, JFK as well. And what he has, what did he have?
Wandering hands.
Probably plenty of those, all right. But no, I know he had a very bad back from the war.
Yeah, we had a bad back from his physical exertions.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Nick, no, that was when he was fighting. He got those. But he had some other condition, and they hid it from the public.
Well, I've got no idea. But it can't be very stringent. Whatever they go through as president can't be very stringent, at all.
No, but this is my point. Any sane person whatsoever knows that man has a personality disorder.
No, but they don't.
And
millions and millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of people, think he is super and tremendous and great, because that's what he keeps telling them all the time, that I'm super and... He keeps saying, I'm super and tremendous and great, and these dinglings from the Yahoo states, they nod their head and they grin their toothless grin, and they say, yeah, that's right, he's tremendous, and can I have a hat?
Okay, but what about getting through a medical with a professional?
Laura, have you seen a picture of Donald Trump's physician?
Yeah.
That sounds like a no.
Of his what?
His have you seen a picture of Donald Trump's personal physician.
Physician?
Yes.
No.
Not physique. That's something else. Physician.
Oh, no, I know. Yeah.
Okay, well, this
Why?
is very important. Do you have the internet, Lara?
I do.
Okay, well then I want you to, in fact, everybody should do this right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to get up out of your chairs and go to the internet and open it up. And I want you to say, Alexa, please show me a picture of Donald Trump's physician. And when the picture comes on the screen, then you'll know what I mean. Seriously, do it now. If you have the internet available, then go to it immediately and look up a picture of Donald Trump's personal physician, and then you will a lot of what we're seeing suddenly becomes understandable. And if you don't have the internet, then you should get the internet. There's puppy dog videos and pussycat videos, all sorts of stuff on there. Trust me, Lara, you have to do it. Where was I? Oh yeah, his nuclear button. And what he does to other men's wives. That is just so creepy. And we got the Nigel Farage things, and there was plenty of stuff about the ew that came up today. Lord Adonis has been banging on about it, and Mrs. M is upset with her Chancellor, and it's just like infighting, like it's nuts like frogs in a box. Kind of like that. Peter says maybe Donny used to speak to text, like I used to send this text. What? Maybe Donny used speak to text. Right, okay. Not used to speak to text, used speak to text, like I used to send this text. Maybe that would explain it. I'm like a smart person. Jenny says hygge is nothing more than cozying up for winter. Overhyped Scandiness. Warmth and hugs is too much like ever closer union. Yeah, nobody wants an ever closer union with 6 foot blonde beautiful Danish people. That sounds awful. Gavin says when Melania finds the courage to divorce the Donald for being a moron, intellectually and ethically challenged embarrassment, will he call her like really smart? She doesn't look like she's enjoying it, does she? I mean, why is she sticking around? Maybe she's contractually obliged. I bet that's it. If you stick around for a certain number of years, then the payout will be this much. I feel sorry for his son. He wheels out his son, that kid Baron, every now and again, and I don't know, they look like they've never met each other. He just pulls him out and just parades him around like a little mini-me. Poor kid. His call in Kilmarnock. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Nick. How are you tonight?
I am great, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going fine. This business of Trump, I do wish the media would leave him alone.
Oh,
really? It's actually making our politicians seem to be sane and clever.
Well, that's a good point, yeah. Anybody who looks good but next to the Donny.
Oh, do you know, I actually looked at the recording of the speech he made with his cabinet behind him.
Yeah.
And where they were trying to keep a straight face, look serious, and there was a couple of them really trying to not to smile. And it reminded me of the time in the Commons when Jeremy Corbyn said about having visited Brussels, and he asked the question, and they asked me the question, and Chris Pilcher, the Tory MP, shouted out, "Who are you?" And the whole place dissolved, and it was the picture of Angela Ego and Andy Burnham sitting either side of him, trying so hard not to smile, and they just couldn't. They actually were grinning all over their faces.
But I think that is a good point, that if the Donald Trump keeps hogging the headlines, then it does make our lot seem competent.
You know, Nick, we have got a classic example up in with the Holyrood Parliament at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
With all the hype about the failing of the NHS, every time Shona Robinson, the health minister, is asked about the NHS up here, a reply is that we're performing better than in England.
Right. But in what category?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's still failing, you know.
We're doing catastrophically badly, but at least not as catastrophically. At least we're not upside down and on fire.
Oh, I tell you, Nick, you actually just wonder, is this actually happening, or are we all in a Monty Python show?
Am I hallucinating, or is this real life?
Mm-hmm, exactly. Or is every day 1st of April?
Yeah. Hey, it must be freezing where you are, Mary.
It is. It's getting quite cold again. We're fortunate where we are that we've actually had very little snow. You just need to go about 4 or 5 miles away, and if it snows, they get it quite bad, and yet we'll get nothing.
You're in a little microclimate.
Well, we'd like to think that, but unfortunately, when you're living in an area round about where I live, you suddenly become the forgotten area by the local authority. Life goes round Kilmarnock, and they don't seem to think there's anywhere else in the county.
Well, you have to make your voice heard, Mary, because the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Well, that's it, and it's a case of, you know, and all this area, all this time of cuts and spending, they really want to redevelop the centre of Kilmarnock, even to the point of diverting the river to put it through the town centre.
What?
Yes.
Is that wise?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy. It's the fact, the big problem in Kilmarnock is the desperate lack of parking.
Parking?
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, that's... But there must be roads in Kilmarnock that don't have any lines painted on them. Surely. There must be no end of... Because it ain't... I mean, it ain't London. It ain't Glasgow or Edinburgh. Edinburgh!
Yeah, do you know, Nick, I lived down in England for over 20 years. And I don't think the people up here just realise how reasonably quiet it is around this area.
Yeah, peaceful.
In comparison, well, even to the extent of Glasgow. You know, they just don't have the volume of traffic, the volume of people, and all this sort of thing.
All the yelling and the shouting on Sucky Hall Street of a Saturday night. Yeah, no, you ain't got that in Kilmarnock, that's for sure.
At least the bonus in Sucky Hall Street is now mostly pedestrian, so there's very little chance of something running you down.
I lived in Glasgow for 3 months, and I grew up in Edinburgh, but then I came back much later, and I just stayed in Glasgow for 3 months. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen was in Sucky Hall Street of a Saturday night, and it was a group of people that had just come out of one of the bars there, and a woman. Well, it's kind of like a cross between a girl and a woman, so like late teens, something like that. She was tottering on her heels and absolutely steaming, Mary. And she reached out for the handle of the cab door, missed the handle, and yet went through the process of heaving the door open. And it was like a cartoon. She grasped the handle but didn't get it, and then just fell backwards in a completely straight line and bounced off the pavement. That was, but she was okay, because you know you get so drunk that nothing really hurts you anymore. You sort of fall limp. But that was one of the funniest things I've seen. You just have to hang around Sucky Hall Street for 10-15 minutes on a weekend, and you'll see something like that, eh?
Yeah. Well, I came from a town where we had no pubs until 1969. I came from Kirkintilloch.
Oh, Kirkintilloch.
Yeah, and I always remember that. I'm going back many years. We took my mum's uncle, who was over on holiday from America, up to the Trossachs. And when we came back down Dumbarton Road, Glasgow, at chucking out time.
Yeah.
And my mum saying, yes, it's terrible. These guys all come out and they're all fighting. Well, couldn't believe it. Not only it was the guys fighting, but the women were fighting as well.
Oh, yeah.
and it was actually more serious, the women fighting, than the men.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that, yes.
Yeah. But as I say, it's just...
it's awful. They say it's...
And yet,
it's awful.
Life went on, Nick.
Of course it does. It has to. All right, nice talking to you, Mary.
Nice to talk to you, Nick.
All right. Peter says that there's one good thing about Trump. The world stopped talking about Kim Kardashian. That's right. Who is... I wouldn't be able to pick Kim Kardashian out of a lineup. Who is she and why is she famous? What are they famous for? Please... no, don't tell me. I don't care. I'll tell you why they're famous. It's because people keep clicking on stories about them. Stop clicking on stories about them, and they'll stop writing them. I absolutely guarantee that's true. That sidebar of shame, they just keep throwing no end of stuff. It's like people throw spaghetti against a wall, and just to see whether it sticks or not. That's what the newspapers are doing with all of that stuff. It's just no end of non-entities, and the people that you've got no idea why they're famous. They're famous for being famous, and they just think, well, it's what the IT people call the long tail. It's quite interesting, this. Well, you be the judge of that. You know when singles shops used to sell the top 40? Because they believed that's where the money was. They only had a limited amount of space in the back to store all their stuff, so naturally you would stock the top 40, and that's what people would come in and ask for. But that's not really where the money is. Oddly, the money is in the bottom 5,000. You know, records that sell one copy a year, and you wouldn't think that there would be any money in that at all. But if you put them all together, it makes much more money than the top 40, and that's why online companies like Amazon and Apple and all of that, they store just stuff that you wouldn't think that anybody would ever want, but somebody does. If it sells one copy a year, or like maybe 2 years, then if you just add them all together, that's where the money is. Counterintuitively, the long tail. And there's the same thing with all of those stories on the internet. It's just no end of here's Justin Bieber again. It's Justin Bieber having a cup of coffee, and Justin Bieber coming out of the gym, and Justin Bieber just got a new tattoo, and Justin Bieber is dating somebody, and now he's not dating somebody, and oh God, it just never ends. And there may be a waning interest. And similarly, these people that just went into, I don't know, did they just go into the jungle or into the celebrity house, or nobody really cares about any of that stuff, but it's small numbers of people clicking on vast numbers of stories. That's why there are so many of these stories. And now they can do that because the internet has an unlimited amount of space on it. The long tail, that's where the money is, honey. Now, am I behind a break? Wait a minute. I do yak on. No, I don't think so. I think I'm all caught up to date. Present and...
Correct.
This says, do you know that Trump appears in one episode of Sex and the City? Actually, he shows up in quite a lot of things. And the reason for that is because he insists on it if you film in one of his properties. It doesn't even have to be his. Many of those places that got the word Trump on the outside have got nothing to do with him. He just leases out his name. That's what his business success has been lately, because he had failure after failure after failure after failure. But despite what he would tell you to the contrary.
I've been successful in every business I've been in.
I only have a 3-hour show, so I can't give you a list of all of his business failures, but they're huge. Huge, believe me. So he just rents his name out, essentially, now. And if you want to film in one of his properties, but part of the contract is apparently that he appears in the film. He was in Home Alone, you remember? The kid was in a hotel in New York, and Donald Trump sways by and directs him to the toilet, I think, something like that. So that's the reason why he keeps showing up in all those things, because it's being filmed in one of his properties. And he insists on it. This one says, maybe one day we'll see the headline Trump trumped. can't wait. Well, that's the thinking of the author behind this book. And you know what? It seems plausible to me. It seems like this really is a hit below the waterline, this book. He's becoming too embarrassing to be associated with. You saw the sheepish looks, well, maybe you didn't, the sheepish looks on the people behind him when he was giving that excruciating interview about how much of a genius he is and how successful and tremendous and huge. And it's becoming ever more embarrassing to be associated with him. And, you know, the Republican Party will do a lot of things for money. But they don't really want to look like fools. They want to look competent and, you know, masters of the universe, and because that's how they see themselves. The biggest donor to the Republican Party actually said that a person's wealth is solely valued on how much they're worth. So if you are a banker and you earn £1 million a year, then and you are an unemployed person and you earn nothing, then the banker is 1 million times more important and valuable a human being than the unemployed person. That's their thinking. And so they think of themselves as you know, Atlas, that Ayn Rand garbage, you know, colossuses bestriding the world, geniuses. And so they don't really want to be seen as dopes and fools and mugs and just embarrassments. And it's becoming ever more embarrassing to ally yourself to Donald Trump. So I think that the author of this book might be right, because nothing else seems to have affected his success, his popularity with the yahoos and the dingling states. The tax cuts may well do eventually, but it's going to take about 8 years for the reality of what he has done to them to actually come through. So in the meantime, they might think that he's done them a favour, but they'll find out later, once he's out of office, that he has done the exact opposite. But this book, I think this might be the thing that actually does it. I might actually go and buy a book. I can't believe it. Cameron says, call your book, Trust Me, I'm Like a Smart Person. If you choose this, please send me a free copy. I'm not going to choose that, and you're not going to get a free copy. It's going to be very, very cheap. Like, hugely cheap. Maggie says, call your book My Bigly Bonkers Book of Tremendous False Factoids. I like that. My Bigly Bonkers Book of Tremendous False Factoids. That's pretty good. I'm going to write that down. Wait a minute. I have to write it down longhand. It's going to take forever. My Bigly Bonkers Book of Tremendous False Factoids. Oh, my hand is sore now. I don't normally write very much. Or read. But both of those things are very, very injurious to your health. We recommend that you don't do them, and that is the official position of LBC. Asghar said, a suggestion for your book title, I don't like to blow my own trumpet. And on Donnie's physician, by the way, if you haven't looked up a picture of Donald Trump's personal physician, you have to do it. Do it right now. You've got the internet. Go and ask it to show you a picture of Donald Trump's personal physician. Andrew says he looks like a Spike Milligan character. Yeah. Donald Trump's personal physician, says Gary, does he drive a DeLorean and have a friend called Marty? Yeah, a little bit. Trish says he looks like a cross between Meatloaf and Gérard Depardieu. No nurse wants to accompany those two during a full medical. He looks like a combination of a medical professional and hairstylist. Let's have Palm Beach. Hello, Trevor.
Good evening. I live about a mile from Mar-a-Lago, which is the winter White House.
Oh, yeah.
Summer White House. And I'm just as inconvenienced as anyone else because you can't get through the roads, because when the president's there, you can't get through. And I will concede to you that he has a personality disorder, clearly. He could be a misogynist. He could be a person that suffers from xenophobia, all of which you could be right. However, the man is telling the emperor that he's not wearing any clothes. Obama, who was completely inept, but a very elegant, scripted scholar, an orator, didn't do his foreign policy was Cuba. So Trump is telling the NATO countries they've got to spend 2% on defense, and damn bloody right he should do so. He's telling the Pakistanis that if they're going to be duplicitous and support state-sponsored terrorism whilst accepting a lot of American aid, that no longer will be the case.
Well, that's curious that the first foreign trip that he made was to Saudi Arabia. That kind of flies in the face of that little thought.
Well, Saudi Arabia is keeping a lid on Iran, which is no bad thing because Iran is supporting Hezbollah, Hamas.
Really? How many Iranians flew the planes into the Twin Towers? Just, can you remind me?
Yeah, a faction
zero.
who happened to live
Zero. They were Saudi Arabians, weren't they? And Saudi Arabia is exporting its extremist Wahhabist ideology, not Iran.
Okay. But the Sunnis will stand up against the Shiites, and you need that balance. Otherwise...
A balance?
Sorry?
You call that a balance?
Yeah, because you do need balanced forces. And the point is that Iran, the dumb deal that Obama agreed to with Iran, allows Iran to fund state-sponsored terrorism.
As Saudi Arabia does. As Saudi Arabia does.
Well, Saudi Arabia is...
See, the difference between Saudi Arabia and Iran is that Saudi Arabia buys a lot of weapons, so anything they do is just fine with both us and the Americans, because that's what us and the Americans do for a living, selling weaponry.
And I'll tell you how Trump will control Saudi Arabia, not just with weaponry, but America will be the biggest energy producer, if it isn't already, the biggest energy producer in the world, and Trump will control the oil price in the world.
You're out of your mind, Trevor. Donald Trump wants to reopen the coal mines. He wants to go back to the 1950s.
That's done for electioneering purposes, but essentially...
Everything is done for electioneering purposes. It's not even electioneering purposes. It's popularity purposes. The only thing that he ever says is something that's going to make people applaud him at one of his stupid rallies.
Yeah, well, the coal mine is a tiny part of the process. All I'm saying is America will be the biggest oil producer in the world, and therefore...
Yeah, the very point at which we've just reached peak oil, and sensible countries are going in the opposite direction. Yeah, you stick with that 1950s technology.
But what I'm saying is China and Russia needs a higher price of oil, and China needs a low price of oil. He can control, providing he can bring them to heel by controlling the oil price.
He can't control himself. What are you talking about?
Well, what control would you say Obama exerted in the world?
Well, at least we weren't on the edge. At least we weren't on the brink of World War III. Picking fights with celebrities and sports people and other politicians and hanging up on world leaders and poking little fat Kim.
Yes, and this is part of his personality disorder. But I'll tell you what, standing up against the leader of North Korea, mysteriously, there are discussions this week.
This is another thing that he's going to take credit for, along with no deaths on American Airlines since he came to power. Come off it.
That he is tweaking his tail, and to get China and Russia to impose sanctions on North Korea was quite a feat.
Oh, please.
But why are you disagreeing with me?
Because you're wrong. Everything you're saying is wrong.
But North Korea is a major ally of China, and China would normally veto or abstain from such a...
well, that's because and they went along this time. Well, they didn't actually go along. Well, the reason is because we're at the edge of World War III. That's why. They don't want the nuclear. They don't want nuclear fallout drifting over the border. Obviously.
But that's never worried China to date. All I'm saying,
but that's because we've never been in this position to date.
North Korea has been building a nuclear arsenal in front of the world for the last 20 years.
So has America.
But America are not threatening the world with atomic weapons.
Oh, Trevor, please. I mean, I don't know anything about history, but you don't really need to know anything about history. How many countries has North Korea invaded over the past 50 years? Now ask yourself how many countries has America invaded over the past 50 years?
Tell you what.
And then ask yourself which sounds like the more aggressive and dangerous state.
If you're saying that America is an aggressor,
yes.
I'll be honest with you. If America pulled in all their troops from the world and said, you know something, I'm going to believe I'm an isolationist. I don't want to be the policeman of the world. It's costing me too much money and losing too many people. I promise you, we will be much more vulnerable if they do that. So
you will be vulnerable to whom? To whom will you be vulnerable?
We'll be vulnerable to any terrorist forces who want to have a go at us.
You are vulnerable to terrorist forces that want to have a go at you. Most of the terrorist forces that are having a go at America are white Americans, by the way.
Well, what about the Taliban?
Well, what about the shooter in Las Vegas? He's killed more Americans than the Taliban have in America.
That's one.
How many Americans has the Taliban killed in America? And how many Americans has that one guy killed from a hotel in Las Vegas? Ask yourself that, Trevor.
International terrorists are trained in camps such as the one.
Yeah, and the homegrown terrorists in America are trained in Arkansas and Ohio and
in training camps, in terrorist training camps.
No, online and in shooting ranges and watching Fox News and listening to Rush Limbaugh and just getting furious and angry.
But there will always be those characters. There will always be those.
Yeah, okay, so stop concentrating on external threats and concentrate more on internal threats. How many people got shot in America last year? It's like 30,000, something like that. And year after year after year, it's the same thing. And Americans are being persuaded that the threat is from external sources, where actually the threat is from internal sources. And people say, and every time there's some mass shooting in America, they say, oh, well, you know, the National Rifle Association, who, of course, are pouring millions and millions of pounds into the Republican Party, they say, well, and you could write the script. They say the same thing every time. Oh, it's far too early to talk about gun control, they say. And then there's another mass shooting, and every week there's a blooming mass shooting. Some kid goes to school and sprays bullets around school, and they say, well, it's far too early after that incident to talk about gun control. Let's concentrate more on what Iran is doing. Iran's not killing Americans at the same rate as Americans are killing Americans, Trevor. You're looking in the wrong direction. And stop watching Fox News. It's turning your brain to fudge. Donald Trump appears in an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where the character Ashley shouts at him for ruining her life. I'm pretty sure Americans relate to that now. Yeah, well, not that last caller. Not that he was sounded American. It sounded. I think there's a vast number of people who have been utterly and completely and totally brainwashed. I'm going to make America great again, and they think, oh yeah, that's right, great. Oh, I'd like that. I'd like America to be great again, and that of course implies that America is not great now. This is the same people as the Brexit lot. We must leave the EU in order to make Britain great again. This is completely meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It sounds pretty unpatriotic to me, by the way, make Britain great again. I think that Britain is great. But anyway, Donald Trump doesn't actually have a nuclear button on his desk, despite what he said to Lil Fat Kim. Fortunately, he has to go through some procedure rather than just slamming his tiny hand down on the desk. The security services told him that that's what that button does on the desk, and he bashes it every time Lil Fat Kim comes on the screen, but it just is connected to a Coke machine. Actually, Trump has access to a briefcase, and that's known as the nuclear football. And it's kept close to the President of the United States of America at all times. There's some man who has it attached to his wrist, follows him everywhere he goes. even to the you-know-where.
Disgusting.
And inside is a guide for carrying out a nuclear strike, alongside a list of locations that can be targeted by the country's arsenal of 900 working nuclear weapons. Such locations include wherever Hillary Clinton is staying and the home of the person who designed his hairstyle. And here's what happens if it all goes pear-shaped and Kim Jong-un calls him fatty. If the president were to order a strike... See, I thought that he would have to actually discuss it with somebody. You know, convene a meeting, and wise heads would, you know, steeple their fingers and have a chit-chat about it. You get people from the Army and the Air Force and the Navy and the Marines and so on, and they'd all you know, have an intense discussion about the Russians. No, apparently nothing like that. He can just beckon the fella over, and he has to open his little suitcase there, and the president needs to identify with codes that are unique to him so that the launch can take place. Now, the codes are recorded on a card known as the Biscuit, which is carried by the president at all times. And the Secret Service have been very clear about this, that the president cannot eat the biscuit. And new codes are provided each day by the National Security Agency. And so he would access the football briefcase containing secure communications equipment, as well as instructions on how to verify his identity and transmit the command. Of course, these would have to be in picture form for Donald Trump because he doesn't read too well. And the launch order would be transmitted to the Pentagon, and it would be received by the Pentagon, and the people at the Pentagon do anything about it. They couldn't say no. They couldn't say, oh, he's just gone off on one again, let's give him a Farley's Rusk and calm him down. No, they have to do what he says. That's the alarming part. So the launch order would be transmitted to the Pentagon and Strategic Command via a radio receiver within the football. And the Secretary of Defense is told about the order, but he doesn't have the power to veto it. And that biscuit, by the way, that piece of card that Donald Trump carries about his person at all times, has a few codes on it, only one of which is the correct code. And here comes the good bit. Well, we're going to have to hold on to this as a thin sliver of positivity. The president has to memorize the location of the codes that are correct on that card that he carries about with him. So I think that we're safe, because the President of the United States couldn't remember where he put his own bottom. So we can relax. Those of us who don't have access to a fallout shelter. Whew. And relax. And Cameron says, I have a vape juice called Make America Grape Again. Priceless. I could do with a couple of pints of that right now, as a matter of fact. And Trump has a good scene in 2 weeks' notice with Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock. I very much doubt it. That sounds like one of those films where people talk about their emotions.
Boring!
Yeah, no car chases, nothing. So I haven't seen it, but I'll take your word for it. Anything with Hugh Grant in it is off my list. Whew. Oh, boy, it's exhausting. So, I could talk about the EU. You might be forcing me to talk about the EU.
Oh no!
Yeah, because there's a lot about that this week as well. It isn't the crazy isn't only over the water. Because Lord Adonis, he really put the cat among the pigeons by saying that Brexit seemed like a nationalist spasm worthy of Donald Trump. And the papers received this information in their usual calm and considered way, by going 7 shades of total berserk. And he was on this radio station talking to Ian Dale when he said he admitted boldly to the question that was put directly at him if he wanted to sabotage Brexit. And he said, much to Ian Dale's surprise, he said, yeah. Ian Dale was rocked back in his seat. Oh, God, the light's just gone out. Wait a minute. I thought I walked around during the half-hour break. Apparently not. Ian Dale was rocked back in his seat by somebody actually telling him the truth. Andrew Adonis openly declared that he wants to sabotage Brexit. But he doesn't actually mean sabotage. He means listen closely to the will of the people, because it's changed since the vote that we had last year. Gosh, it seems like so long ago, doesn't it? So much water under the bridge. Such a lot has happened. Labour peer Andrew Adonis openly declared he wants to sabotage Brexit. He wants to thwart it, I bet, miserable thwarter. He insisted he was a Democrat, but would work to unpick Britain's vote to leave the European Union, and he ain't the only one. There's a lot of wise heads that are speaking up, and they're getting the same bucket of ordure poured all over them by so-called patriots writing in the right-wing press. But there's something about those so-called patriots and the organs that they work for that makes me a little bit suspicious. He quit his post with what is called a tirade against Theresa May and her negotiating plans. I didn't think they had any plans. I thought they were just winging it. But apparently that's what they're describing them as. Plans. Tirade is what it was described as. Now, when someone has a tirade, that means that the person describing it disagrees with their point of view. So the Daily Mail described it as a tirade, but that means that they just disagreed with what he said. Or a rant is another word that people use to disagree with what somebody says. And I mean, it makes it sound like he's a nut that went berserk in the middle of the road in his dressing gown and his slippers with a saucepan on his head. You know, his fist clenched and his eyes bulging out. Tirade. It wasn't a tirade, it was a disagreement. His startling declaration lays bare the intent of some Remain campaigners to defy the will of the people 18 months after the referendum vote, said the Daily Mail. But it's not defying the will of the people. It's the opposite of that. And when he said that he was a Democrat and he wanted to disengage from the Brexit process democratically, that was completely right. What's not democratic is to take one vote on one day and then not enter into any discussions from that moment on. It's like, as a child, you decided that you didn't like carrots, for instance, at the age of 5, and that's the last you wanted to hear about the matter. Makes no sense. So I'll get into that, and there's also Philip Hammond, has been who's clinging on by his fingernails, and Boris Johnson came up this week with well, just what you would expect from the man. And you know, the news is actually like a comedy show these days. Simon Marks is doing excellent work as our correspondent from America, and he said more or less, and as Donald Trump sought to assuage doubts about his mental capacities, his dawn tweets about being a genius brought further concerns about them. It's priceless. I can only talk about Donald Trump for so long, though, because it's like I can only have so much cake, you know? I'm getting diabetic just thinking about talking about him anymore. I'm going to pace myself. We love you, Donny. Thanks for all the laughs. But it would be remiss of me not to talk about Andrew Adonis. And if you've seen a picture of Andrew Adonis, you'll know that no Adonis. I don't know where he gets that idea. He's a Labour peer. He's a Lord Adonis. And he quit. He said, right, that's it. I'm leaving. The infrastructure czar. He just disagrees with where the government is going. Now, it seems to me, having, being a person on the outside, it seems that the government has actually got no idea where it's going. It doesn't know where it's going, and furthermore, it's late. So he says, that he disagrees with where the government is going, disagrees with Theresa May's negotiating plans, but I was unaware that they actually had any plans. I didn't think there was a plan at all. We were just making it up as we go along, kind of bouncing around like pinballs. And he was accused of there's that word again, thwarting. It's the only time in my life that I've ever heard the word thwart. Thwarting the will of the people. Miserable thwarter. It's nonsense. Can we stop this garbage about the will of the people? I'm so sick of hearing about that. Just as I'm sick of hearing about the word negotiations, like Mrs. M says. Very precise with her S's. The negotiations. If we were going to be led by the will of the people, then hanging should be reintroduced for parking across someone's driveway. 50 should be the speed limit, a 20 zone. And you should be able to do anything you want because it's my right.
Correct.
That should be the will of the people. You know, if the vote had gone the other way, do you think that the Mail and the Telegraph and the other Brexit ultra headbangers would be yakking on about the will of the people? No. They'd be complaining that the vote was rigged, that the establishment lied to get their way, and the evil socialist European experiment will kill us all. They wouldn't say one word about the will of the people. Say that we'd all been duped. You know, the people used to say that women that they didn't like the look of should be strapped to a ducking stool and dunked in a river. And if they died, well, that serves them right for being ugly and weird. And if they survived, they should be tied to a stake and burned to death. That used to be the will of the people. And we changed our minds. We used to think that thrashing the life out of schoolboys that talked in class was good for them. Thank you, sir. May I have another? And we changed our minds about that too. So let's stop saying that the will of the people must be obeyed, because the people are easily swayed, slow-witted dopes with little learning. No offence. I include myself in that, obviously. So Lord Adonis said, when the people see the terms, that it's less good than the status quo, then I think we can stop this. And you know what? Nothing else makes any sense than that. I mean, if the people see the terms and they're less good than what we have now, but they still insist on leaving, then by definition the people are not to be listened to because they aren't making any sense. They're having a temper tantrum, and they should be put to bed with that. If the results of the negotiations are worse than what we've got now, why would anybody want that? Nobody voted to get poorer. And it was his perfectly reasonable pronouncements were met with the usual hysterical response. Brexiteer Tory Damien Moore said, this shows complete contempt for the verdict of the British people after the referendum in October 2016. October? He says it also undermines all the work that the government are doing to make it a success in... You'll love this next bit. It undermines all the work the government are doing to make it a success in order to help ordinary people. Because that's what the Conservative Party are famous for, helping ordinary people. Conservative Ben Bradley warned the Labour and Lib Dem alliance in the House of Lords that they were determined to make a mess of Brexit. No, wrong. Those that have expressed an opinion are trying to save us from the mess of Brexit. And Lord Adonis was sort of echoed by Tony Blair. Yeah, I know. You remember Tony Blair, don't you? No! He had such extreme reactions. He is our most successful Prime Minister in modern times. We voted for him again and again and again. Familiarity has bred contempt. The ex-PM, he called for the public to be allowed to rethink once a deal is struck. Of course, nothing else makes any sense. Of course we should be able to rethink. I'll give you the analogy again. We were at a fork in the road, and we didn't have any idea what was at the end of the fork, and there was no indication which one led where, and we just thought, oh, let's take the left one. And so imagine marching down the left fork in the road. And the left fork in the road comes to an abrupt halt 100 metres down at a cliff edge. Now, would you just keep marching because you had previously made the decision to take the left fork, or would you think again? He said, Blair said that he accepted entirely the result of the referendum, but he said that democracy doesn't stop on one day. Of course. He said, I'm simply saying one very, very simple thing, which is that in 2016, you know, you wanted to get out of the European Union, but you didn't see the terms of the alternative relationship. He said, if when you see those terms, you think it's better to stick with Europe, you're entitled to have that say.
Correct.
Yeah. And, you know, before we were asked this question, nobody had a problem with the European Union. It was just so way down on our list of priorities, it didn't even feature. Nobody was talking about it. Not one single well, apart from you-know-who.
I'm a nutcase.
Who made a career out of it. Apart from him, nobody else was bothered at all. We were concentrating on different things. It didn't even feature. It didn't flit across our tiny minds. It was unemployment and the wealth gap and pollution and they only pick up our rubbish every other week and, you know, all stuff like that. Nobody cared. Nobody even thought about it. Until David Cameron, trying to shore up his own, his not popularity, what's the word I'm going for? His, oh God, I've walked myself into a cul-de-sac. His, not superiority, it's one in the middle. Authority. Trying to shore up his authority in the party, he gave us this question because he thought it would be a done deal. Thanks a lot, David Cameron.
I think this is nonsense.
Yeah. We're still not missing you, by the way, in case you were wondering. So this Lord Adonis told the Prime Minister, Brexit is a dangerous populist and nationalist spasm worthy of the orange nightmare, Donald Trump.
Oh, shut up!
Yeah, talking about you, Donny. He said, after the narrow referendum, and it was narrow, and let me remind Nigel Farage one more time. Can you remember back when you said that if it was 48 to 52, it would be unfinished business? That's what he said. And it was 48 to 52. But he was expecting to lose by 48 to 52. See, this is why it just seems so bizarre that people on the right are digging their heels in and talking about the will of the people and no further discussion must be entered into because we voted on one day and that's it, final decision. Before the vote, Nigel Farage said that it wasn't going to be the final decision if it was that close. But because he won, he wasn't expecting to, then it is the final decision. The hypocrisy is just staggering. He said, Lord Adonis said, after the narrow referendum, a vote for an undefined proposition to leave the EU, which is exactly what it was. It was undefined. Nobody had any idea what the result was going to be. I mean, nobody even thought about the Irish thing, apart from anything else. Or about who's going to do these jobs when these people don't want to come here anymore or are prevented from coming here or any of that stuff. Nobody thought about it at all. We just did a Donald Trump in this country. And it's curious that it happened at the same time. Same, and some of the same characters as well. Same oily chancers using dodgy Russian money, persuading us to do things that obviously weren't in our best interest. And he said, it could have been attempted without rupturing our essential European trade and political relations. It's just absolutely comical that our Brexit secretary and various grand panjandrums from the government are flying to New Zealand to try to drum up trade. New Zealand. You can't get further away and still remain on planet Earth. They're going to New Zealand. How many people live in New Zealand? It's about 6. And the rest of them are sheep. What have we got that they don't already buy from us? Turning our back on the biggest trade organisation on the planet, which is so near you can see it on a clear day, to go to New Zealand. It's comical. He said, Lord Adonis said, by becoming the voice of UKIP and the extreme nationalist right wing of your party, Theresa May, you have taken a different course for which you have no parliamentary or popular mandate. Yeah. That sounds about right. The voice of UKIP. Nobody wants to hear the voice of UKIP anymore.
We've got a few idiots in our party.
Well, steady on, Nigel. You know, I think this is all about tax. I think that we've been hoodwinked by people with evil on their mind. I don't think it's about getting back sovereignty or any of that stuff that we've been led to believe. I think it's about tax. Did you ever wonder why some newspapers are so vehemently against the European Union? I mean, did it ever occur to you to just wonder? Because it didn't used to be. It didn't used to feature on the front page or inside. It didn't even feature on their radar. They weren't complaining on a daily basis about the blooming EU making us have straight bananas and all that guff. Didn't occur to them because nobody cared. So why now? I think it's all about tax. Because the EU is closing tax loopholes that the British government want to keep open. So offshore bankers, like the owners of the patriotic British press, are freaking out that they might have to actually, you know, pay some tax in this country. So they're engaged in a massive propaganda campaign to persuade people to act against their own best interests. Very successfully. I mean, if they really cared about the country, they wouldn't be based in Monaco and the Cayman Islands and Jersey and the Isle of Man. They'd contribute to the schools and the police and the NHS instead of sitting on their yachts in the Caribbean and paying people to criticise the schools and the police and the NHS. Unless I've got that wrong, in which case you can correct me.
Hello, sir. Are you currently, or have you ever been a Remainer? That's what it's getting like, isn't it? I mean, it's getting like the 50s where you were a communist, red under the bed. But the thing that was comical, I think, the latest Brexiteer gag was I actually saw on the newspapers, I think, just the day after this, they were outraged because the Royal Mail was not going to do Brexit stamps.
Yes. I mean, that is just scraping the barrel, that is. I mean, they're just desperately reaching out for outrage now.
I mean, you know what this is like? This is like if you're flying on a plane, okay, and say you're on a plane, your good self, sir, is on a plane, and the passengers say, well, we're going to have a referendum who'll land the plane, or we've all elected Nick Abbott to land the plane. Lord, I know I've not actually had any experience in flying a plane, but sorry, we'll boot the captain out. Nick's going to try and land the plane.
Yeah,
because that's what the will of the people.
Exactly right, yeah, the people have spoken.
It's insane.
It's exhausting. Yeah, we're not going to have any stamps to celebrate Brexit. It's like that cartoon when the New Year's honours list came out. Oh my God, I can't remember whether it was. I think it was the Telegraph or the Mail, one of the two, one of the Brexit Ultra publications. They had a cartoon of the Beatles. You know, the Beatles crossing Abbey Road, that famous picture of the Beatles crossing Abbey Road.
Rock and roll!
And I think one of them was Nick Clegg and one of them was Barry Gibb out of the Bee Gees. And I can't remember who the other one was. But anyway, there was three of them. And Nigel Farage was in a car attempting to cross the zebra crossing. Looking, his customary furious. And the headline on the cartoon was snubbed. Because Nige didn't get a knighthood or some gong or a funny name and a badge. Snubbed. Crying out loud. This thwarting Brexit. Yes. Paul says, keep socking it to them about Brexit. Blair is right, Adonis is right, and the majority of the population is right. It is no longer the will of the people. That is correct. It actually isn't any longer the will of the people. I don't think it ever was. It was too important... Okay, two things. It was too important to put to a referendum in the first place. The public should not be asked about complicated issues because the majority of the public doesn't have the mental capacity to contemplate complicated issues. Let's be honest. Two, what was the second one? See? Look at me. I shouldn't be asked questions that are important as that. So the public shouldn't be allowed to... I can't remember what the second one was. There's two points, but I can't remember what the second one was. Lowestoft. Hey, Joe.
Hello.
Yes,
Good
Joe.
evening. Yeah, these Brexiteers, they're going about the will of the people and the referendum, but they seem to totally ignore the referendum about the Good Friday Agreement, which included an open border, free movement of people, free movement of goods and services.
Well, they didn't ignore it. They just didn't think of it. Nobody thought of any of the ramifications of the decision that we made, because it wasn't made on any... based on any facts or any thought or any research or anything. People just heard... It's like Trump. They heard, let's take our country back, and they thought, oh, yeah, that's right. We'll take our country back. But it's utterly meaningless.
Oh, no, earlier on in the week, I managed to trip up your colleague, Mr. Farage.
Oh, yeah.
I phoned in, yeah, he did this, hello, Lowestoft, Joey Lowestoft. I asked him straight away, I said, do you think the results of referendum should be honoured, Nigel? And he went on about yes, and I had to stop him halfway through. I said, I'm sorry, Nigel, we're at cross purposes here. I was talking about the Good Friday Agreement referendum, not Brexit. And it totally threw him. He's no answer to the border question. And you remember that poster he had where he's studying for all them refugees that had really nothing to do with it. Well, I put it to him that Europe have already said that after Brexit they want every country to be in the Schengen area. Well, there's going to be an open border. Control of our own borders. Well, the only border we have will be an open border that we have no control of whatsoever. It'll be controlled by Europe and Ireland. They'll be in the Schengen area, and every asylum seeker in Europe will have free and easy access just to walk through the border.
Well, yeah, there won't be a border there. There will be nothing there. They'll just stroll across the road and from south to the north, and then they can hop on a boat over to here.
Yeah. All legal. But the thing is, I put this to Mr. Farage, and I says, you know that poster you had? And he says, yes. I said, your prediction might become true, but not because of Europe, but because of Brexit.
The odd thing about immigration, I don't really want to get into it because it's kind of just too depressing, is that there's more people coming from outside the EU over whom we have complete control than coming here from inside the EU.
And they're all welcome.
Well, I don't know about that, but the government says that they're welcome because the government could stop them all at the border. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And of course, like other European countries, if somebody came in and they didn't find work within, I think it's 6 months, isn't it? Then we can sling them out. We can do that. We haven't done that. Why? Because those people are propping up our economy. Without them, we'd be screwed. Without them, you would be sitting in a restaurant and you wouldn't have any food. Well, you wouldn't have a waiter to bring the food that doesn't exist because they wouldn't have a chef, and there wouldn't be a plate to put it on because there's nobody to wash the dishes. So
I live near an asparagus farm. It was 3 months' work a year. Mostly people who do I think they seem to be Lithuanian now. They come over for 3 months. The work is backbreaking. It's minimum wage. Who's going to? Does anybody aspire to do that when they're at school? What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an asparagus picker 3 months a year.
Why does asparagus make your pee smell so funny? There's nothing else that you eat that makes your pee smell funny, but asparagus does it straight away. What is that?
I love the stuff.
Oh, well, I like it too. I just don't like the results, that's all. Our services industry represents something like 80% of our economy, and much of that is us buying things that we can't afford with money we haven't got. Shops, restaurants, hotels, that kind of thing. Almost all of them, up and down the country, are run with the help of foreign workers. If not totally, then in part. Practically every restaurant and hotel, coffee shop and so on, certainly in London, is done by somebody that's come over here. And the usual refrain from arch Brexiteers is that, well, British people should be doing those jobs. As though British people want to do those jobs. And you will point that out to them, and they say, well, then British people should get off their bottoms and, work for a living. But the point is that we are doing. We've got full employment. That part of our economy is, on the surface, healthy. I mean, the work that we're doing is often really bad and 0 hours contracts and all of that sort of stuff. But we've picked. It's like vultures. We pick the meat off the bone, and the rest of what's left is being taken by the immigrants who have come here to do work that's badly paid, but is better paid than what they can get at home. Essentially, they're doing us a favour, and people are complaining about it. It's incredible. We've picked the carcass of all the meat, and we've just left the gristle for others to come here and clean up after us, literally and figuratively. And we complain and complain and complain.
Stop whining.
Why would you want to do those jobs? Why would you want to be a dishwasher, for instance, or work overnight cleaning people's offices? Why would you want to do that? Nobody wants to do that. You'd have to be desperate. You'd have to be so desperate that you would leave your family and your friends and the country that you know and your own culture to come to a place where people don't want you to clean up after them. That's what those people are doing. And we're giving them grief and telling them that they're not welcome here. Well, we'll miss them if they go. That's absolutely true. Edmonton. Hello, Andy.
Hello, good morning, Nick.
Yes, sir.
Right, what it is with the Brexit, I think, we overdone it a bit, I think. We rushed into it, and getting out of EU, I don't think it was or it is a good idea. I mean, as I was saying to your researcher, the type of job that I do, I meet a lot of people. I see a lot of people, a lot of business people telling me that they're not really sure whether they want to keep investing in here or whether they want to relocate their offices into Europe because of the Brexit. And obviously they want to be somewhere with a bigger population.
And more money.
And obviously, I mean, would you rather want to invest somewhere with a nation of 60 million people or rather than 400 million people?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's we're going to suffer a bit from it, I believe. I think as a nation we will do well, but also we need more to inspire our people, the British people, to do low-paid work.
Why?
Well, look, I mean, instead of them being in dole, instead of them, being in benefits.
Yeah, but we don't have a lot of people who aren't working. We've got full employment. Pretty much everybody is working. There's a small pool of people. That's true. There's a small pool of people who aren't. But then a healthy economy needs about 3-4% of the population out of work at any one time. We don't have a long-term unemployment problem in this country. There's companies need to have a pool of people who aren't working at any one time to choose from in order to expand. So the situation as far as the number of people in employment goes is very healthy at the moment. We don't want people to stop doing what they're doing in order to do worse jobs.
No. I don't mean it in that way. But what I mean, a lot of people are working in 0-hour contracts.
Yeah.
So they've got uncertainties. They're not able, if they want to get a mortgage, they won't be able to get a mortgage because there is no uncertainty with what
that's
they're
right,
doing.
yeah. But they're not going to have certainty if they go and become a waiter or a dishwasher.
No. But, I see, let's, for example, say some people who are studying in universities, so it's, to fund themselves or to help themselves with everyday living as a student, they can do low-paid work,
Well, yeah, I'm sure some do, especially now it costs so much.
So, and in regard to refugees, I think there will be no stopping. Nobody will be able to stop refugees as people.
Well, nobody wants to. See, that's the thing. I mean, I know that people say that they don't want to be surrounded by foreigners and all of that stuff, and it's mostly the people who shout the loudest about blooming foreigners are those that don't have any blooming foreigners around them. You know, the people on the coasts and in areas where there are fewer foreigners, people feel the strongest about it, which is kind of bizarre. You know, London has got the most foreigners of any place in the country, and we're just fine with it. No problem at all. I think it's fear of the unknown, apart from anything else. And it's also an age thing. The reason that we won't stop the flood, as it's been described, of people coming here is because we need them. Fortunately, there's a massive number of people who want to come to this country to be taken advantage of. And that's what we're doing. We're taking advantage of them, giving them terrible work that we don't want to do, and we're paying them really badly. Which part of that doesn't sound like taking advantage? And if they stop and just decide to go somewhere else and do that, we're stumped. I mean, if people work in offices, how do you think they get clean? They stay clean? What, do you think they just get clean magically? You got your little kitchenette at the end of the office there. You think that the cleaning fairy comes in the middle of the night and poof, and it's all sparkling and brand new? No, somebody who's come over here from Bulgaria does it, with the wiping and the cleaning, and they put the dishwasher on and clean the fridge and all the rest of that. Because we certainly wouldn't. Holy smoke! The mess that we would leave, it would never get clean ever. So people are coming and they're being taken advantage of, and we're complaining about that. It's just amazing to me. They're coming here to bend over double in a field all day and pick up tubers, and then which we buy in a supermarket at a very low price because the people that pick them out in the ground are doing it for a very low wage. And the other argument I get is that. Well, we should increase the wage of the people. You know, if the potato pickers or the broccoli pickers were paid, £20 an hour, then British people would want to do that too. Well, A, no, they wouldn't, and B, that would mean that the price of the produce in the supermarkets would skyrocket. Who wants that? Basically, all of the cleaning up jobs. It's kind of like the stuff that your mummy used to do. Like we're toddlers and we leave our stuff all over the place, and mummy comes up behind us and picks it all up. We should be delighted that people want to come and clean up after us and be taken advantage of and paid a pittance for doing it. We should be thanking them, not asking them to go and do it somewhere else. What the hell's wrong with us? But I think that it's not about this. Like I say, I'll reiterate, I think it's about tax. I think the people that have been very cleverly campaigning and hoodwinking the British public are just doing so for their own self-interest. And I think it's all about tax. Because the EU is going to launch an investigation into a British government scheme that helps multinational firms pay less tax. Because that's what we do for a living, essentially. We're a tax avoidance racket off the coast of Europe, and we sell, weapons of mass destruction. The EU Competition Commissioner, Marguerite de Vestager, said that she's going to open an in-depth investigation into a UK tax scheme that exempts multinationals from anti-tax avoidance measures. And officials think the special exemption for multinationals may break EU competition rules by allowing them to pay less tax than domestic-only rivals. You can remember how much the government dug its heels in when the EU was talking about a banking tax. I mean, holy smoke, the finance racket have really done it for us, and we'll be poorer probably for 50 years than we would have been otherwise if they had not mended their evil ways, or if they had mended their evil ways, rather. And the EU wanted to do something about it, claw just a tiny amount back. And the British government fought them tooth and nail. And did they do that for the ordinary common man or woman in the street?
No.
Of course not. We're not going to benefit. And they crow about the stock market going up, and oh, look at the stock market, we're doing so well. The stock market doesn't benefit us. You know, The Independent, when that story came out about the EU launching this investigation in the British government, The Independent says, while everyday working people had no choice but to pay taxes in their own country, some members of the global elite avoid paying their fair share by setting up shell companies in exotic tax havens. And you know which flag flies above those exotic tax havens? Ours. That's what we do for a living. So just think where the information comes from, where the propaganda comes from, that's been so persuasive. It's not that odd then, do you think, that some offshore media barons and dodgy titans of finance want to get out from under the microscope of the EU and continue avoiding their dues under the benign rule of the rig system that we run here in the United Kingdom? And it's not for the benefit of the little people, not leprechauns. It's for the benefit of them, the ones with the megaphones, bellowing at you on a daily basis that those who want to revisit this referendum result are thwarters and treasonous. Just think of where it's coming from. 0345 6060. Oh, I still haven't got around to Nigel Farage. I must do that before I go. I'll put it on the top of my pile. All right, when I come back. I'm calling Seven Oaks. Hello, Mark.
Hi. I noticed you've been saying that a lot of people felt that they didn't know what to vote for when they had the referendum because they didn't know enough about things. That's certainly what some people have been saying to me. And the referendum ballot paper didn't have a place where you could say, I don't want this to be decided by a referendum. I mean, some people were saying to me things like, I pay my MP to make this decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they would know more than I do, which seems to be a reasonable position to take. Indeed, the majority of people in the 2015 general election voted for parties that didn't want the referendum.
Mm-hmm.
So not to have such an option seems to me to be going against that. Because nowadays people are saying that because the majority of people voted for parties that had Brexit in their programme in 2017, that's some kind of endorsement for Brexit. But if that was the case, there should have been that option in the referendum by virtue of the 2015 general election.
All of the, not all, but the vast majority of the MPs that were elected by the people, by the will of the people, wanted to remain in the EU. The vast majority of our elected representatives thought long and hard about it, and they wanted to stay because they thought it was better for the country.
Absolutely, and they've never said, well, as far as I know, they haven't said they've changed their mind. I mean, famously, Theresa May was asked this on several occasions, and she refused to say that she now supported Brexit as a good idea. If they promised anything, it was to do Brexit because that was what the people wanted. That they didn't say that they thought that they agreed with the people. They thought it was a bad idea, but they would do it anyway because that was what the people wanted. But the polls now appear to say that that's no longer the case.
Yeah, and we don't even know what the result is going to be yet. But what's happened so far is bad, unless you only want to buy things that are made in this country with British raw materials. If you want to buy anything that was made abroad, it's already more expensive.
Yeah, and as far as reviewing the result is concerned, I mean, I've asked people about reviewing the result. People have been saying that without qualification, the result shouldn't be reviewed. How can that possibly be democratic? I mean, otherwise Tony Blair would still be Prime Minister because he was elected in 1997.
That's right.
It makes no sense.
Well, add it to the things that don't make no sense. Thanks a lot, Mark. 0345 6060 973. I think it's about time that people started to make sense on this issue rather than just screaming at each other with spittle-flecked fury. And I'll restate my case. The people with the megaphones, the propaganda pushers, just think about who they are. Think about where they are based for tax reasons. And then think why they are so keen. Is it because they really want what's best for the little people? Or, like everybody else on Earth, are they thinking first about themselves? Bristol, hello, Mark.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Great. Yeah, I'm a Brexiteer. I don't want to get into an argument with you about this, but this whole argument about people who pick fruit and all this, I did an experiment this summer. And where I live in Bristol in the southwest, there's a lot of fruit farms, all that kind of thing. So I called every single one I could find a number for and said to them, "Hi, I'm Mark. I'm really looking for some work. I could start today, tomorrow, whenever you want me to." And I swear to God now, I called every single one. I didn't get a call back from any one of them. And we keep hearing this, oh, British people won't do the jobs. But honest to God, I must have called probably about 35 different places. Not one of them called me back. And I was saying I could start work today.
Okay, all right, and what's your conclusion?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to tell. But, like, people always say, like, oh, British people could do these jobs.
Yeah, but why would a British person want to give up a better job to do a bad job?
Well, no, it's not about giving up a better job, but, like, do you not think some of these farms employ foreign labour because they're cheap, because they can push them around? Do you not think that has anything to do with it?
Well, it could also have something to do with the fact that you hear time and time again from people in the services industry that British people are terrible. They don't show up, they don't work very hard, they're kind of lackadaisical, and people who come from abroad, they're much harder workers, they're much more resilient and much keener.
Okay.
And as an employer, which would you choose?
Well, okay, fine, but that's quite a, that's quite a sweeping statement, isn't it? Like,
well, no, but I didn't just make it up, though, Mark. I've heard that from people again and again. Employers in the services trade.
But where do we go from that? Like, what if I was a person who was genuinely willing to do that work at that time, and I wasn't even given a chance? It's like, I said to them I could come in now, and they weren't interested. No one was interested. And,
well, maybe they had. Maybe they already had their workers.
What? So you're saying I don't believe it? I don't believe it. They're all.
Well, why not? I mean, if you're a farmer and you've got fruit, you know when the fruit is going to become ripe for picking, and so you don't on the day that it's ripe then start calling around and asking people if they're going to come to work. You employ them the previous year. I mean, I would imagine that they have the same people come year after year after year.
Okay, but like because I don't have all the answers to this, but I'm just saying, put yourself in the position because I was playing devil's advocate. I've got a professional job. I was just doing an experiment. But imagine if I was someone who genuinely said, like, I really want to find some work. I really want. I don't want to be at home doing nothing, claiming benefits. I want to get out, even if it is in a dirty field picking fruit. I want to do it.
But
how do those people feel when they can't even? Okay, but they can't even get a look.
But I think the basis of your argument, is incorrect because there are not a vast number of people in this country who are sitting at home doing nothing on benefits. We have full employment. Just think of this. I mean, I hear your voice, and you sound like an intelligent man. How many farmers have what sounds like middle-aged, white-collar, well-educated men calling them up wanting to pick fruit?
I've no idea.
I would think very, very few. In fact, zero, I would say. So that's probably the reason why they didn't call you back, allied to they've already got a full complement of workers, which they probably arranged a year ago. Farmers know when the harvest is coming. They don't wait until the day before to call around, because otherwise it would rot on the trees by the time the workforce showed up. Thanks, Mark. Let's have Enfield. Hello, Jackie.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
That's good. You know what? I haven't been listening to your program because I've been busy doing something else tonight.
Busy?
Yeah, I had a party. I'm afraid. Sorry.
Oh, a party going mental.
Well, it's the last day of Christmas, so we celebrate it as Greek people. I'm
not taking my Christmas decorations down for like another week because I haven't really had time to sit and have a glass of wine and stare at them because I've been working since before Christmas.
Yeah, but you had your Christmas before us, so you should take them down before us.
Well, but only for a day. I only had it for a day, and then since then I've had no Christmas at all. So I'm going to have it for another week. I want it for another week, damn it.
Oh, well, I have to take them down tomorrow now because that's
okay then.
I don't know what it means. It's 12th day of Christmas or something. I don't know. But anyway, I really missed your program. program today.
Thanks, Jackie.
I'm going to listen to it later, but it's different when it's live. You know, I tell you what, before we had the referendum and before Trump came in, I don't know what we talked about.
No, I've got no idea either. I have no idea. We complained about the bins, and I've got no clue what we used to talk about. But it used to be a lot more dull than all of this exciting stuff, eh?
Yeah, but I do believe that like this picking the fruits and you know, the farmers that, you know, pick people to do the work. I do think it is mainly foreigners that do it, because immigrants that do it, because, you know, our kids wouldn't really even think about going to pick.
Well, no, but neither should they. We would want them to do better things. We would want them to work in IT or...
but even like studying through university and whatever, I do think that people that come over, they've got this.
Well, they're more desperate. They're more desperate. They're hungrier. They're less well off. Yeah.
And that's how we were when we first came over to England. You know, my parents, and all that.
Yeah, Jackie, I'm going to have to go, because I have to do this thing about Nigel Farage before we go. All right.
Oh, all right then.
All right. Thanks, Jackie. So anyway, Nigel Farage, our own Nigel Farage, is going to meet the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier on Monday. And he stated that he was keen to involve the 17.4 million British people who voted for Brexit. And so he issued a short video on LBC, and he requested people to send topics using the hashtag #AskBarnier. He said a procession of people have been to see Monsieur Barnier, Adonis, Ken Clarke, and of course Sir Nick Clegg. And I thought, who's there representing the views of 17.4 million people? He said, nobody.
I'm a nutcase.
So he suggested himself. He said, I want to involve you. I want you to ask your questions directly to Michel Barnier, so respond, give me your name, give me your hometown, give me one question, and I'll pick the best three. So he threw it out to the internet, which is a big mistake, huge. And I'm grateful to The Guardian for collating some of the amusing responses that he got. Social media users, can you believe that people were rude on social media?
No.
It's incredible, isn't it? Social media users have reacted to the hashtag #AskBarnier with a series of questions that are unlikely to make the cut, says The Guardian. This one, for example, about the motivations behind Brexit may be too uncomfortable for the meeting. And this is precisely what I was talking about. It says, the question, Monsieur Barnier, why would a group of rich tax dodgers, shady tech billionaires, non-dom press barons, intelligence chiefs in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, and Russian oligarchs want the UK to leave the EU just as you closed tax loopholes? I'm stumped. Hashtag #AskBarnier. Some questions alluded to the claims of some Brexit supporters that Britain held all the cards in the negotiations. Steve Bullock wrote, why does Mr. Barnier continuously and successfully defend the interests of the EU27 rather than simply submitting to every whim, preference and self-imposed red line of UK government? Has he even the faintest idea who we are? A Twitter user asked about Farage's attendance at a rally by Germany's far-right Alternative for Deutschland party. James Felton wrote, ask Barnier to patiently explain to you why it's a bit Hitlery to speak at a far-right rally in Germany. A former UKIP leader's low attendance, former UKIP leader's low attendance rates as an MEP were called into question. Mark Tessier-Ashpool wrote, ask Barnier why does Nigel Farage have one of the worst attendance rates of the European Parliament? Several referred to Farage's claims of being in a precarious financial situation. Yeah, he said, I'm broke, you remember? And the cost of his EU pension to the British taxpayer after Brexit. Simon By wrote, ask Barnier if you can claim your expenses back for attending the meeting, you being so broke and all that. Powelek wrote, ask Barnier if it's okay to forgo your EU pension so as to reduce the UK's exit bill, you know, as a patriot and all. One tweeted to ask Nigel what it's like to lose to a dolphin at an election. that actually happened. That was in 2010. John Burkow won the seat in Aylesbury, and a man dressed as Flipper came second, and Uncle Nigel was third. And finally, Granny McEntry said, ask Barnier, why are you wasting your valuable time taking a meeting with Nigel Farage? And the lesson is, never ask the public what they think the danger is they might tell you.